we are the employer, therefore you are at our mercy, and we require complete loyalty from you. Yet, if it comes to us needing to cut costs in ways that we don't even understand, we will make no hesitation to cut you. And that's the situation that I was in. In this video, I'm going to cover with you why fractional might be preferred to full time. And really, it comes down to the difference between a plug and play person, a resource, versus a permanent resource. So, if you've been dabbling about with if you should go fractional, go freelance, go contract versus being a permanent full time or even a permanent part time employee for a company, I'm going to talk a little bit on this video about why plug and play, being a plug and play resource, might work better for you than being a permanent resource. I was a full time permanent employee as often as I could be, right up until it didn't really work for me. That was early in 2024. I was working a permanent full time job, but I had been laid off the year before. And while I was working that permanent job, I was also doing contract work with one client on the side. I was able to do both, had agreed with my permanent employer that I could do both, but it got to the point where I was very dissatisfied with the experience. And listen, this was not the first time that I was dissatisfied with a permanent employment position, but I certainly hope it was the last, because I was experiencing what many people experience when they are married to a company or latched to a company as a permanent employee. Management that I had no control over, bureaucracy and internal politics, again, had very little control over. Very much a power dynamic of we are the employer, therefore you are at our mercy, and we require complete loyalty from you. Yet, if it comes to us needing to cut costs in ways that we don't even understand, we will make no hesitation to cut you. And that's the situation that I was in. And specifically, I had a very toxic manager, which was really unfortunate because the first 3 months there, I had a great manager. But again, through things that were outside of my control, I was beholden to a manager that drove me to therapy. And fortunately, I was able to, through my network and things, which we are going to go over in a future video, I was able to get another client that allowed me to jump ship and become fractional. Now, that worked out great for me. And I will emphasize that getting to the point where you can jump off like that does take a lot of work, because you're probably going to wind up working a full-time job, full-time hours, in addition to building up a client base on the side. A lot of things go into that. We'll cover all the things that can help lead you to become fractional, a plug and play versus a permanent full-time employee. Those are the things that brought me there. But the reason I enjoy plug and play, and the reason I believe my clients do, is they do not have to pay for a permanent employee to the degree of they're not paying for my health insurance. They're not paying for 401k retirement funds. They're not paying for my equipment. They're not paying for my Wi Fi. They're not paying for me to have HVAC needs or utilities if were to go into an office. I am fully remote, and I'm able to be inserted into their processes and into their resources as needed. I often have with my clients where they'll be like, "Hey, we know we contracted with you for this scope. What would it cost, or is it possible for us to have you do additional? Or can we even dial you back during this season or reduce things? Would that work?" Now, that might seem very uncertain. I totally understand. But to me, it was not as uncertain as working for a full time employer, but yet not knowing at any point I could be cut based on their budget, based on what their misunderstanding of my performance and my job was for the company. And unfortunately, that happens quite frequently, where upper management is making decisions and they have very little understanding over what any permanent employee does for their company. Thus, it makes it a lot easier to say, well, let's just cut that number, not realizing the impact on the business. What often happens is cuts are made in employment resources, and then later they discover, oh no, we actually needed that resource and we are now no longer able to do a certain thing or perform a certain task or fulfill a certain project. And then guess who? Contract people can come in. So plug and play, being a fractional employee can work very well if you are flexible and if you are working with a client that needs that flexibility, and the two of you can mutually benefit. I do find that the power dynamic tends to be a lot more equal on even standing because you're running your own business, as are they. There's a whole lot more understanding about bottom lines and resources and needing to plan ahead and needing to communicate. It just tends to work out a bit better and sometimes more favorably for the fractional person than it would for the full time employee. At least that has been my experience. That's all I'm going to go into today. But as promised, I am going to be doing some videos that talk more minutely and more specifically about making those decisions, what the workload is like when you're trying to transition into a fractional versus a full time employee, some of the things that might bring you to decide to do that, the things you should consider before you do that, and then how to manage it on the other side. So, stick with me. Let me know what questions you have in the comments and or reach out to me online, and I'm happy to incorporate those and make sure that we cover those questions in future videos. Please click like if this was a helpful video to you. Click subscribe if you want to make sure you don't miss the future videos. And I will be with you in a future video about going fractional as a marketer. You're still here? It's over. But you should hit like on this video before you head out and subscribe if you want to get more videos that'll help you realize how much more there is to marketing. See what I did there?